Thank you. Good morning, Agape. Let me step to the side and see if I'm still online. I am. Charles Holt. He ran out the room, but I'll have to catch him later. He already sang my sermon, so I can really sit down. I had a revelation. And that's really what Charles was singing about. That's what Ricky wrote about. In every moment of our life, there is a tapping. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. It's our holy Christ presence. We're not talking about the man Jesus. We're talking about the individualized holy Christ presence of each and every one of us. I never know how I'm going to get started. I have a folder filled with notes. I have hours of meditation as I look forward to coming and having a conversation with you. And I came from the mountaintop, literally. I was up in the mountains with the ministerial students at a ministerial retreat this weekend, up near Lake Arrowhead. And it's a powerful weekend, and please come to the graduation for these wonderful 7 souls who have said yes to ministry on June the 20th. Come. For they said yes in a way that each and every one of us is called to say yes. Ministry becomes a career, it becomes an avocation, it becomes the work that some of us say yes to, but ministry is what we're all to be engaged in, to minister to our soul, minister to our human aspect. The topic today is I am revealed perfection, or I am revealed perfection. The I am of all life, the I am of all being. I was asked today to talk to you a little bit about Revelation for those of you who didn't get to go. And one of the things I want to say to you is that the folks who showed up for Revelation this year were serious. Serious. They weren't the looky-loos. They weren't the folks who were just coming by to see the stars. These were the folks who knew that this would be an opportunity for all of us to sit together and know the truth. Remember, absolutely remember who we really are. In these days when the media are broadcasting all kinds of lies, they're telling us everything but the truth. And they have so many ways to do it. You can Twitter it. And Reverend Michael does it all the time. You can be on Facebook. You can get a text message. You can get a phone call and a voicemail. You can get it on television and radio. You can get it on CD and DVD. Everywhere you turn, the world that is anchored in appearances, the world that is anchored in that aspect of ourselves that is human, is broadcasting nonstop. And so to go to a revelation, to get a revelation, to remember the revelation, is such an important time, an important thing in this time. So we had the serious folks. And if I were to rename Revelation as I experienced it this year, I would call it the dance of the I am of all life on the wings of the song of eternity. Because the choirs sang. Oh, Ricky had it going. There was the vibratory field created by the music that we just were able to drop down into. God is all there is. You know, all the songs that we sing as chants here that the rest of the world is now beginning to gravitate towards because they know that those chants actually match the vibration of the divine presence within us and call us forth in a special way. And the speakers, beginning on Thursday evening when Reverend Michael was seeking to bring us into an understanding of coping and cooperating and communing, which were the subtitles of the power of creativity, moving from coping to cooperation, to communion. And what he reminded us of is the fact that we get so mesmerized by the world, we get so anchored in that aspect of ourselves that is human, that the things that go on in our little bitty lives, that we forget that all life is our life. We forget that the I am of all life is the I am of my life, is the I am of your life. That the I am of all that is in the universe is the I am of my life, is the I am of your life. It is the only life there is. And in those moments of forgetfulness, we accept lies about ourselves. And they're like pebbles in the shoe, for those of you who were in here for Prayers in the Wind. After a while, we begin to develop a little limp, but it allows us to keep on moving because we cope with that pebble that's in the shoe. We cope with those lies that have been told, even though something's always tapping, seeking to tell us the truth about who we are. And the question is, are we listening? Are we listening to the great I am of all life that is seeking to tell us in every moment, to share our gifts, to sing the song, to teach, to love, to create? And when we move from coping, from simply accepting the lies that the world tells us that you can't do this, you're not smart enough, you're not tall enough, you're not short enough, you're not the right color, you're not old enough, you're not young enough, all of these different things, you're not smart enough, you're not talented enough, all of those are lies. For at the center of each of us is infinite potentiality, the fullness of the I am presence. But we get faked into these identities. Yeah, it's kind of the game I think we came into the world to play. We drop into families that begin to tell us things. We drop into societies that shape an identity. And when we are grown, we think that's who we are. And what we don't realize is the game is to flip the script and come to the full awareness of who we really are. To recognize that that's a construct, that's of imagination. It's because the divine idea of who we are is always, for each and every one of us, in our Holy Christ presence. Whole life, love, truth, beauty, joy, intelligence, creativity, harmony, abundance. That's all that is known in the divine mind about each and every one of us. And anything that tells us differently is a lie. And yet, we limp around the world with a pebble in our shoe, building a callus around it so that we become numb to it. We begin to think that it's really a part of us, because callus can go around something and actually go around it so that it seems like it's part of your foot. Do you know that? You can actually build a callus around a pebble. And when you look at your foot, it'll look like it's really part of your foot, rather than some imposed idea, some imposed thing that is external to you. So Reverend Michael was teaching us that you've been coping, trying to make the lie work, trying to move through the world limping with the lie. And then you hear the tapping. You feel the presence. Maybe it's in a dream. Maybe it's in a daydream. Maybe it's just in a moment of inspiration as you're listening to a song. Maybe it's in the whisper of the wind. Maybe it's watching the beauty of a sunset. Maybe it's watching on a starry night. Maybe it's in a moment when you realize that you breathe without conscious thought 99.9% of the time in your life. And you suddenly get that moment of realizing just how much a miracle that is, how awesome it is, that it is the very breath of God. And in that moment, you begin to move from coping to cooperation. You're ready now to cooperate with the power and the presence of life. You're beginning to realize that your true nature is love, light, truth, and beauty, creativity, intelligence, and abundance. And then you move from there to a full communion where you're living as the presence, in and as the presence. Are you with me? Yes. And then on the next morning, Friday morning, Daniel Brinkley came, and for those of you who have heard Daniel Brinkley when he's come to our community, he'll tell you that he has been to the other side a lot of times. He was struck by lightning twice. He died from a heart attack. He's had seizures where he's blanked out for hours. So he comes with an authoritative message. You know, it's documented that his heart did not beat for more than 28 minutes. Yes. And yet he's up and walking around and talking to us about the reality of our lives, that there is no death, that we are eternal, infinite, immortal beings, that the one that we meet, that being of light that people for thousands of years have talked about, when they've had their near-death experiences, they've come back and they've said, I met a being of light. In Christianity, they say that it was Jesus who met them. But what Daniel is the messenger to tell us is that the being of light that we meet, I meet myself. It is my holy Christ presence. It is that unique imprint of the fullness of the divine presence as me. That divine idea that is always the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It never changes. It's always perfect. I am reveals itself as perfection in every individuation. It is an energetic, a frequency that is always broadcasting to us, tapping, 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 saying you're more, this is who you really are. It's saying you are the light, I am the light, you are the light. We hear that in Vicky's songs, right? She sings to us of the truth. It is the true message that we are the light. And the reason that Daniel Brinkley comes forward is because he wants us to know that life is eternal. Because what keeps us in bondage in this world is our fear of death. It's a fear that the earth suit will perish and will be gone. We do so many stupid things just to preserve this earth suit. It's a glorious technology. It's an earth suit. It's technology. It's flesh and blood technology to allow us to move around in this earth plane. Just as the astronauts need a spacesuit to move around in space, right? That which lives in this earth suit, that which uses it for mobility on this planet and to experience things in the physical, is infinite, eternal, immortal. Do you know how many things they get us to do? We line up behind governments and their military, taking sides, because they convince us that somebody wants to kill us, someone wants to destroy us, someone wants to keep all the food so we will starve to death. And our fear of losing this physical form, our fear of death, will allow us to say, okay, give me the gun, I'll shoot them too.